What is going on, college sports fans? Welcome back to another video. Today I'm recapping day 1 of March Madness, and man, it was a good one. We seen 15-seeded St. Peter's Peacocks upset the 2-seed Kentucky in the first round, and we also seen, I just finished watching the game of the day between Murray State and San Francisco. I mean, those two teams were going at it. It went to overtime. We seen multiple overtime games today and upsets. And before we get into these recaps, at the end of this video, I want to let you guys know we are going to go over to the ESPN tournament group and see who is winning, who has the best bracket throughout day 1. And we're going to do this in all of our recap videos. So if you're only interested in that and you want to skip to it, or you want to skip to a certain game for me to recap, you can go ahead. We're just going to go ahead and here and start in order. So our first game, we had Michigan defeat Colorado State 75-63. Some games I'm going to talk about more than others if they were more interesting. But this game, Colorado State, they controlled most of the game. My bracket busted after this first game. My main one, I had the Rams, and I thought that they were going to do it. They were shooting lights out there early. They had an early lead, but they just could not score in the paint. Hunter Dickinson was huge protecting the rim today, and I think he really had them kind of frightened to go into the paint because Colorado State were settling for a lot of threes, and then eventually they stopped hitting. Michigan had the comeback there in the second half, and they definitely outplayed Colorado State in the second half, and Michigan is moving on to the round of 32. And then we had this popular upset pick between South Dakota State and Providence. A lot of people were picking this, man. I actually did not. I knew Providence. I knew it would be a close game, and it was a very good game. But I knew Providence were going to find a way to pull this one out. A lot of people thought it was a little bit controversial there. Providence was up by 3. South Dakota State needed a stop to have a chance to tie it. But Providence point guard put up a 3, got fouled on the 3-point shot, which gave him 3 free throws, which put him up by 6, which put the game out of reach. I thought it was the right call. I thought that Providence got fouled on that play, and I thought it was a good call by the ref. So Friars moving on. South Dakota State was a very popular upset pick. Providence was not favored by much in this game. It was a great game, but the Friars pulled it out. All right, then we had Memphis versus Boise State, and my man Abu Kigab was cooking for Boise State there in the second half. I mean, Boise State was down, I think, 19 at halftime. He led them back. He had it within, I think, 4 points, maybe 5. But then Memphis started to pull away there again in the last 30 seconds. It was a lot closer down the stretch than the final score says here. Yeah, like I said, my man Abu Kigab, he scored all of Boise State's points, man, there in the second half. I'm exaggerating a little bit, not all of them, but pretty much, man, most of them. He was really putting his team on his back and gave them a chance to win this game. So credit to them, and this is going to be an ongoing story throughout this video, but the Mountain West was kind of frauds, man. The Mountain West Conference was a fraud this year, and I got bamboozled by them. I mean, Colorado State, we already talked about them. Boise State, and we'll get to San Diego State later. Wyoming lost in the first 4. No more Mountain West teams. None of them advanced. And I think that messed up a lot of people's brackets because I think a lot of people were thinking, including myself, that the Mountain West was a very strong conference this year. And it turns out they're not competing with the big boys. They're not. And then we had Baylor versus Norfolk State. Not much to say here. I'm not going to waste my time on it. Baylor blew them out, won that one. Same thing with Tennessee against Longwood. Then we get to our first big upset. I know Michigan over Colorado State is 11-6 upset, but Michigan was favored to go into that game. I don't really consider that too much of a upset, especially considering how bad the Mountain West performed. But Richmond over Iowa, this was one that I talked about could happen in my stream yesterday, and it actually did end up happening. So I picked that game right. I actually didn't get to watch this full game. I only watched the last few minutes of it, but Richmond, man, they pulled away, and they are fighters. They have some great defensive players on that team, and they pulled off this upset. This was the first big-time bracket buster of March Madness. And shout out to the Spiders, man. I look forward to watching them versus Providence. I think that they could probably pull that off and get to the Sweet 16. So shout out big time to the Richmond Spiders. All right, then we got Georgia State versus Gonzaga. Now this one, I know you guys see the score and see that Gonzaga won by 21, but Georgia State was leading in this game or had it tied, and they were in it until about like 8 or 7 minutes left into the game. And then Gonzaga just hit the throttle, scored like 20 points. Georgia State just could not stop Drew Timme or Chet Holmgren, who had like 7 blocks in this game. He almost had a triple-double with points, rebounds, and blocks. It was crazy. Drew Timme was cooking. I think he had 30 in this game. And, yeah, they just had an offensive explosion there with like 7 minutes left. But Georgia State, they were hanging around in there, so props to them, man. Then we got Marquette versus North Carolina, and, man, North Carolina just absolutely took off with this game from the start and didn't look back. Tar Heels dominated that game. Not too much to talk about there. New Mexico State versus Yukon, another 12-5 upset. We had 2 of them today. And how about Teddy Buckets, man? Teddy Allen had 36 points, or at least 35. He was cooking, man. And he's a former Mountaineer, which is my team. I'm so happy for Teddy Buckets, man. He had himself a game. He literally had more than half of his team's points today, and he put them on his back, and especially down the stretch, he finished this game for New Mexico State. Yukon had no answers for him, and Yukon is a great defensive team, so the fact that he did that on them, man, look out for Teddy Buckets, Arkansas in round 2. That's all I have to say. And now we get to the big game of the day. St. Peter's Peacocks beat Kentucky in overtime. This was a great game, man. And shout out to the Peacocks, man, because they hit big shots down the stretch to force overtime, and they were hanging in there fighting. They were not going away, and they ended up pulling it out there in overtime. And they just completely outplayed Kentucky in overtime. I mean, it was a great game throughout. But St. Peter's, they came to play. They played hard. They wanted it more. And we get our second 15-2 in a row this year. We had one last year with Oral Roberts, and this year with St. Peter's. And I love seeing these upsets. I was watching this live, and I was just going absolutely crazy for the Peacocks because my bracket was already done. I didn't even care about that. I just wanted to see this upset. It was awesome, and congratulations to St. Peter's, man. They deserve it. This is St. Peter's Day, not St. Patrick's Day, man. They deserved that win. It was awesome. Then we had Creighton over San Diego State, our third Mountain West team who took the L today. And San Diego State was leading in this game all the way up until about 2 minutes and 30 seconds left into the game, because I was watching the St. Peter's game and I seen at the top of the screen they were showing the scores that San Diego State had a comfortable lead with like 2 or 3 minutes left in the game, like up by 7 or 8, and I was like, oh man, San Diego State's actually going to win that game. A change for the Mountain West. And then I turn it on after St. Peter's had won and that game was over, and I was like, wow, this game is tied. It's about to go into OT. So I watched OT. Creighton pulled it off in the end, even though they had a couple players who fouled out. It came down to the last shot by San Diego State. They had about 4 seconds, and they were down by 2, and they turned the ball over, and then they fouled, and Creighton was able to knock down a free throw. So they had a chance to tie or take the lead with a 3 with 4 seconds left. The San Diego State guard came around the screen, kind of fumbled the ball, got it stolen, and then they had to foul. So tough ending to the Aztec season. They actually fought very, very hard in this game, and they had it up until the end. Amazing comeback by the Blue Jays. They get the dub. And then we had St. Mary's over Indiana. It was close throughout majority of the first half. Second half, St. Mary's just took over, man. And I thought that the Mountain West was the best mid-major conference this year, but it's the West Coast Conference by far. I'm not sure if you consider Gonzaga a mid-major program. I don't really consider Gonzaga a mid-major program, but the rest of their conference, St. Mary's and what San Francisco did this year, and we'll get to them later, they are definitely the best mid-major conference this year. And now we got Vermont versus Arkansas. Now, this one was close all the way out until the end of the game. And Vermont was actually only down by 2, and this was a very crucial point to the game. With about 12 seconds left, Arkansas passes it into J.D. Notte. Vermont gets a deflection. It bounces off J.D. Notte's face and barely hits the fingers of the Vermont player and goes out of bounds. It would have been a huge turnover. They would have been only down by 2, a chance to tie it or take the lead with about 9 seconds left, but it went off of Vermont. Arkansas gets the ball again. They get fouled, make both their free throws. Game over. Amazing game. Arkansas survives, and they get New Mexico State and Teddy buckets in the next round. Then we had Akron versus UCLA, and Akron was killing it this game. They had an excellent game plan, and they were up most of the game. Tiger Campbell went off there at the end. He really won this game for the Bruins. He hit a mid-range that put him up top, and then he hit a deep Curry range 3, which ultimately sealed the game. Akron made another late comeback. They had an opportunity to actually tie the game there at the end, but they couldn't get it to fall, and UCLA survives 2 4 seeds playing around the same time who just barely survived the upset. And then we had game of the day, man. I actually just got done watching this game about 10 minutes ago before I'm recording this video. And let me tell you guys, this game lived up to the hype. It was hyped up to be one of the best games of this tournament, and it was. This game was amazing. And how about Jamari Bouye for the Dons? He almost single-handedly won this game for San Francisco. I mean, he was killing it. He hit a 3 at the end of regulation. Well, almost the end of regulation. It was 7 seconds left, which tied the game, forced overtime. And then he hit another deep 3 in overtime. He had multiple layups, but Murray State was answering right back. It was bucket after bucket after bucket. I mean, both these teams scored over 10 points in overtime each. They were just going back and forth. Justice Hill was hitting shots. K.J. Williams came up big with a big post hook, which put Murray State up 89-87, and that one ultimately was the shot that put them over, and Murray State saw the home stretch, and the Racers crossed the finish line, man. They're in OT, and they survived. And then, of course, we had Kansas versus Texas Southern, and I wasn't really watching that game because I was watching these other games, which were much closer, and I didn't really want to watch a blowout. I was watching the better game, so Kansas moves on as expected. So now, let's get into our tournament group and see who has the best bracket through day one. All right, so we got 3 people who are tied for first place right now, and I don't think anyone has a perfect bracket right now. I think all these people have gotten all but one game right. Let's take a look. So we got Safe Picks or Drew Dizzle 33 in first place. Also tied for first place is Bull Knoll 2, and then Deep Fried Bracket, but he had Kentucky winning his entire tournament, so that is a tough pick. We'll get into Safe Picks bracket. Let's see which games he got wrong, which one busted his bracket, because he is in the lead out of all. I think we have almost 200 people in here, and he's in the lead. So he got all but 3. Okay, so nobody had. So he got 13 games correct out of 16. That's pretty good. I was expecting someone to have maybe 14 or 15. I'm surprised nobody has that in our group. But he got New Mexico State wrong. He had Yukon winning that one. He had Colorado State. I had that one too. Busted my bracket. And then he had Kentucky moving on. But he didn't have them too far. He had them Sweet 16. So 3, not too bad for safe picks, Drew Dizzle. Good job, bro, to you. Now let's get into our second. Well, I guess he's tied for first place. Let's get Bobo Noel. See what he had. So he also had Yukon winning. So that was a big one. He had Michigan right. He had Kentucky in his Final Four. And then he had Iowa winning. So that was a tough bracket buster for Bobo Noel. And then our third place, which is also our tied for first place, Deep Fried Bracket had Kentucky winning the entire tournament. And they go out. He had Vermont beating Arkansas and going to the Sweet 16. But he did get the New Mexico State one right. Then we know he had Kentucky wrong. And then he had the Jackrabbits to the Elite 8, man. So that's a very tough one that Providence won there for him, because they actually had a shot at going to the Elite 8 if they had knocked him off, because they get Richmond next round. So that is a tough pill to swallow. So judging off what I see here in those 3 brackets, they had a lot of their guys, they had Kentucky going deep. A lot of their teams that they had going deep are going far. So I think we're going to get some new top people in tomorrow's recap. So we'll see if Safe Picks, Bobo, and Deep Fried Bracket are still on top tomorrow. So make sure you guys tune in for tomorrow's recap video as well. And I hope you guys all are enjoying March Madness as much as me, because I am loving it. I'm ready about to go get some sleep and then do it all over again tomorrow and watch some more basketball. So make sure you guys subscribe if you guys are new. Comment down below which game broke your bracket first. Mine was the first game of March Madness. Colorado State lost. It broke my bracket. Let me know which one broke your bracket first. And yeah, subscribe, drop a like. I'm out.